There's a new American gangsters, 'cause we speak bold, give no fuck about the haters. It can take freedom from a cold dead hands. We're locked in low for the last dance. 'Cause we're the new American gangsters, ready to die for this land.
Consistent with my real gender.
Ready to die for this land.
Welcome to the Patriot Punkcast. Sorry for the late start tonight, guys. It is our 1 year anniversary, and for the first time, we did not make it on time. For that, we apologize. We've had to go through and create new links, do a whole bunch of stuff. We've got an exciting episode for you tonight, so if you would, please help us avoid these technical difficulties and all the problems created by them, and share the show with your friends. Like this video. There's been a whole shit ton of alleged school violence going to happen this year or this week. Today it just broke that there was another attempted possible assassination attempt on President Donald Trump. Stuff is hitting the fan, guys. It is just I think people's stress level is so high that they don't know how to handle it, and it's causing havoc everywhere. We've got the Millersville conspiracy cop, and we are going to tell you a little bit about the new direction we're going to be taking the Patriot Punkcast in. But before we get started, we do want to remind everyone that we are entirely self-funded. All of the headaches that we go through, we do at our own expense. We actually pay to be a part of this because we feel like it's important to make a difference. Activism is a little bit different in the 21st century, and that's kind of going to be the topic of tonight's show. What do we do when it's us versus them? We've got some exciting guests. We've got some technical issues with one of the guests, so you'll be staring at a blank screen, but just remember he is in here in spirit, we'll say. And we do want to go ahead, since we are entirely self-funded, we don't take any money from big name advertisers or anything like that. I do sponsor the show myself as the authorized Kirby dealer for Middle Tennessee. Just wanted to let everyone know that over 20 years experience, sales, service, all of that, whether it's the vacuums, the mops, the turbo sanders, the drain uncloggers, whatever piece of equipment it is, if it needs service, or if you're interested in looking at one, there's 110 years of American-made excellence in that product, and it would be my honor to show it to you. You can check out midtnkirby.com. That's midtnkirby.com if you want to learn a little bit more about that and schedule a preview. Joining me for this endeavor tonight is my good friend and out of the closet anarchist, Daniel Wagner. Oh,
what is up, amigo?
Not a whole lot, man. I'm just trying to rush through the opening since we had the technical.
Yeah, you're doing great. You're sounding a little bit like Tim Pool on Double Speed, man. You're doing awesome.
That's I figured everyone's been anxiously waiting in the comment section. So
hey, what's a live show without a little technical difficulty from time to time?
Yeah, exactly. That being said, if you guys do want to support the show, we would really appreciate it. You can go to patriotpunknetwork.com/support. You can also check out our videos page, all sorts of news articles. We've got some good stuff there. We make fun of the DEI sidewalk. We've got some homeschool haters, expose on the corrupt sheriff's office, which I'm sure we're going to get into tonight with one of our first-time guests. And you know what? Check it out. Let's have some fun, guys. Let's go ahead and bring in our first guest of the day, and that is going to be Mr. Kevin Lindke. And Kevin, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, you did. That's you hit it right on.
All right. So tell everybody just a little bit about who you are and how your name became more famous than maybe it was in the past.
So about 9 years ago, I got pulled into a very contentious custody case. And through those proceedings, I started realizing we had a much bigger issue in my community. And the more I started to dig, the more I realized just how corrupt and unethical our local government was. And so my efforts actually led me into taking on the city of Port Huron and the county of St. Clair. And specifically, I went after the city manager of Port Huron. our little dust up ended up bringing us both to the United States Supreme Court, where earlier this year I was able to secure a 9-0 unanimous decision in Lindke v. Freed. And that basically had to do with local officials and their social media activities.
So one of the things that the reason I knew what your name was is I was engaged in my own litigation in the Middle District of Tennessee involving censorship, and the judges and all the arguments were, well, we just need to wait for this decision to come from the Supreme Court. So at that point, I thought it was like, maybe I should see if he'll add me on Facebook, and small world, right? That you got to love the internet.
And the way he kept talking about you, at some point, I just had to put my hand on Chase's shoulder and say, man, okay, I get it. I get it. He's awesome. You love him.
Well, so to put things in perspective, and I know I've talked to you about this briefly, Tennessee is one of the 4 states that you don't have to go to law school, just pass the bar association bar exam. And the issue here is that there's a good old boy network. All the attorneys are interconnected, and I've got 22 lawsuits right now that if I had just south of $11,000 in filing fees, I could file all of them. And those are the low hanging fruit. Those are the official government pages that say they're the official government pages. And you just can't find anyone to go after it. So I'm slowly filing them pro se. And I think that that's an important part of how resistance looks, not to sound like a, 1970s communist or something like that, but that's what the resistance looks like. I'm excited to get into it, and I'm excited to introduce you to a good friend of ours who is our other guest for the evening, and that is His Majesty Sean Murphy.
I can't believe I got through all these technical problems.
I know. I'm in the nick of time too. I saw your camera pop up as soon as I was telling people we had camera issues, and you pulled through in the clutch. So
I probably add 100 pounds being on your screen. I can't do any of this technology right. I was like Tony Soprano.
Well, so that Kevin understands a little bit about who you are, and so that the people who may have missed you the last time you were on, what is your issue right now in the town of Farragut, and what's going on there? Short, sweet.
So I moved here 4 years ago. I get a flyer in the mail. They're going to put 1,000 apartments in. And I start digging and clawing and asking questions. It turns into a full-fledged doxing war against me, where they're just abusing me. We ended up winning an election 2 years ago for 1 seat. Almost won the mayorship. They had to actually commit about 6 or 7 felonies to hold control. We just had an election, took a 2nd seat, and we've turned a 3rd member. So we actually dislodged the corrupt establishment from power, and all the good old boys here can't believe it was done in 2 election cycles. And I'm finally talking about that. I had my hands in this, and all of this has gone on because they've been building billions of dollars in housing, subsidized housing in Farragut, which is part of Knox County. They're doing it in Knox County as well. And we've uncovered hundreds of billions of dollars in fraud all over Tennessee to put subsidized housing in affluent areas, which is going to destroy their communities. It involves a federal judge who now the federal courts have actually altered documents in my case. And we're trying to get the judge kicked off because he's connected to all of this. He used to be the chief of staff for the former mayor of Chattanooga, who's at the USDA giving out $90 billion in our money to quote farms that are actually not. It's like tinfoil hat stuff on steroids, and it involves all kinds of issues, but the federal judge is in on it. They're altering my documents, trying to kill my appeal. The federal judge has been killing cases where people are suing municipalities in their insurance pool. I think that's a good summation of it. Like every conspiracy theory you could think of, they're doing. It's just unbelievable. But the good news is we beat them in the elections, and we're now going to start repealing all their garbage. So they just haven't figured out how much pain's coming their way yet. It's only been a month.
Well, so I've been watching you. I've been watching Kevin. I've been watching, there's a few other people, Connie Regula out there. And for the audience members, Kevin is not a Tennessean, okay? Michigan, right?
Michigan, yeah. And I've actually, I'm aware of Connie. I've been following a lot of her stuff for a long time because of, the custody stuff and the different family court issues I've had. She's been on my radar for quite some time.
Well, so Connie's been on the show 3 or 4 times, I think. I talk to her probably every week. They, if you know any of that story, they have thrown the book at her. And what I've noticed, and the reason I got involved in politics is COVID. I'd always been interested, always loved the discussion and the banter and having a little argument at my dad's bar when I was growing up. You talk about politics and religion. The two things you're not supposed to talk about are my two favorite subjects. So, but I was sitting working my aerospace job when COVID hit, and they gave me this little card. It said essential worker. And I might not have been the best history student, but that sent up red flags. And I organized a protest to end the lockdowns. And while I was at that protest, I was fired. And what I realized, the reason I decided to jump 2 feet into this, start a show, start exposing politicians, memeing them, bringing meme poster boards to public official, to public meetings, was these people are all human and they lie to you so often. What was like your catalyst that got you involved, Kevin?
As far as going after the government and stuff like that, like
Yeah,
I said,
in terms of cyberbullying the government, we'll call it that.
so basically it was, it started, like I said, with my custody case. And, I kept being held in contempt of court for my social media activities. And after about 3 years of dealing with it, I decided I created a Justice for Oakley page. That's my daughter's name. I've since evolved from that page into, I call it Through My Eyes now. But I just found that social media, the reach you have, is a very powerful tool when you're trying to go after these corrupt government actors.
One of the things that I've noticed, you can make the most poorly produced, lame meme mocking something about them, and 7 people can see it, and one of those 7 people is that person. And that's what I've noticed is that these people have gremlins, trolls, whatever you want to call it, that like scour the internet looking for whatever it is, any PR opportunity or issue that could arise. And as soon as they see something, they send it. And what about you, Sean? What was, I know you aren't a Tennessee native, but you're here now. What was the catalyst that got you involved?
A long time ago, it was 2006. Chris Shays was my congressman. He's a John McCain, Mitt Romney type. He's a really good guy. He's just oblivious politically. One of the last actually decent politicians. And I was so tired in 06 of the taxes and the government spending. I crashed his town hall. And this is in Connecticut District 4, which is ultra liberal now. Very, it's lower Fairfield County where there's a lot of money. And I just crashed the town hall meeting. I start asking questions. And here's a guy who's a very famous U.S. congressman, and more people came to see me than him afterwards. And I'm like, this is hilarious. Hit Rush Limbaugh a few times, ended up on the show, ended up in another part of the state, ended up on the state executive committee right after I moved there in 2007. 2 weeks later, our state senator had a scandal. He was a 70-year-old Italian guy, and his granddaughter comes over with a black eye. And the FBI was putting a sting over the garbage hauling in Connecticut because there's a lot of mafia ties with that. And Lou asked a guy who he thought was a made guy, which actually ended up being an FBI agent, to just talk to his granddaughter's husband. And in Connecticut, that means put your arm around him, give him a hug, and say, if you do it again, I'm going to break your kneecaps. And they ran Lou out of the Senate for that. I was on the state executive committee 2 weeks. I didn't know anybody. I'd lived there 6 months. And I won't repeat due to the profanity of some of the conversations we had, but I went to Lou, and he's been our state senator a long time. And I said, what's the problem? Like, what did you do? He goes, I just asked to have him have a talk to. I said, did you beat him up? No. Did you try to beat him up or anything like that? No. I'm like, well, what's the problem? I didn't know any better. And they ended up rigging this. The RNC rigged the congressional seat, which is now District 5. So that one is a toss-up between George Logan, who's actually a good Republican, and one of the squad crazies, Jahana Hayes. And the RNC screwed up the whole race and made Chris Murphy, who's now a senator, a congressman. Chris didn't even live in the district. He was in foreclosure in his house and got a cushy deal from a bank that got bailed out, and he's now a U.S. senator. And I went after the Republican Party while I was I was on the board of directors of it, like the state executive committee here. And I ended up resigning and became sort of a cult figure. And I'm like, I'm just Sean. I just showed up. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't prepared for any of this. One thing led to another. By the time 2019 came around, I was running campaigns. And I decided at the end of 2019 to get out of Connecticut over of all things, the vaccine mandates. And I'm like, you're not going to make my kid take something against my will, go pound sand. I ended up in East Tennessee, and that's kind of the history. I mean, it was a wild ride. I was very well known in Connecticut. Chris Murphy still runs when he sees me, and the Republicans and Democrats hated me, which I wear proud.
Well, so one of the reasons I wanted to bring that up is that I've noticed that everyone's tactics are a little bit different. Daniel, do you have the picture of the yard art?
I can bring it up.
Yeah, can you
Which
bring that
one?
up
The first one or the one or the 4 sheets of plywood now? It's grown. It's like a Baptist family. We went from 1 kid to 4. So you probably have the first one that I got fined $1,800 for.
Yep. So, well, I want to show it just so we can get some people background, because the purpose of today's show, Kevin, what, I'm not meaning to put you on the spot, but while Daniel's bringing that up, what political party do you claim, if any?
I'd say I'm, a middle of the road independent that probably leans more left. If I had to pick, these days it's so polarized, but I think the gays should be able to get married. I think we should all have guns. And I think that, people should make their own choice when it comes to, having kids and stuff. Kind of, I see the benefits to the argument on both sides. But it's tough these days to kind of walk that middle of the road.
What about you, Sean? What would you classify yourself as?
Under Tennessee rules, I'm a bona fide 4-4 Republican. I think really where I fit in this is I'm the combination of the good parts of RFK, fighting against big business, the big business problems. There's a lot of good ideas that Democrats like him have. Medical tyranny, all that kind of stuff. I'm like a John Rambo type, so I'm probably about a step away from anarchist. But I believe in working within the Republican Party, but I don't support people like Bill Lee. I don't think he's a valid Republican. You would find me somewhere between a combo of the good parts of a classic liberal with a traditional constitutionalist and a civil libertarian. And I guess that puts me. I'm definitely a domestic terrorist, according to Homeland Security. I'm high. I always joke they make lists to put me on them, and especially after what I've done here in my, you put the first yard art up. Can I give some perspective on that real quick?
Yeah.
So, if you look at that photo, you'll see 3. Those are 3 officials. The one on the right is the idiotic mayor of Farragut, and you notice that he's got a prison jumpsuit, and instead of his bow tie, I've got his handcuffs. He committed multiple felonies by campaigning inside the building during elections. He made up a story. I tried to run him over with my car. The video that we have disproves that completely. The one on the left is the now former vice mayor, liberal New Jersey escapee Louise Pavlin. And she is the Mad Queen of Hearts. This one stung. It was so effective, she didn't run for county commission. And by the way, we won. The good guys won that seat in a 5-way primary with a great. We had a takeover of that seat from a corrupt good old boy to a great leader.
So we've got a more left-leaning independent, a bona fide 4-4 Republican. Daniel, what are you?
Oh, I'm where Sean doesn't dare tread, and I'm a full anarchist. I'd be curious to know one day.
Sounds like a challenge to me.
Yeah, I'd like to know one day what's keeping you from that one step away. But
I don't have a machine gun yet.
Yeah, well, I've been claiming anarchist for quite a while now. Probably I don't know, a good 10 years at this point. It's just I've decided and realized that the government's not the solution for anything, and the only way we're going to actually solve this stuff is to start in the family and the local community.
And I would say I'm a Republican. I'm a bona fide Republican here in Tennessee. But I'm a MAGA Republican, Make America Great. I'm also very libertarian. Once we shrink the size of government, Daniel and I can argue about who pays for the roads when that's the only thing left that the government's paying for.
That's why I'm here.
I'm there, baby.
That's why I'm here.
That's the angle that we've taken. And the reason I pointed that out is so that people watching this, especially Phil Williams, understand that there are not some far right extremists here. None of us are far right. In fact, the far right, Daniel and I were talking at 5:00 this morning, really tick me off sometimes. And I see the solution being the evolution of the people. Some people call it populism, but I really think that the parties have put themselves at polar opposite ends, and they are almost fighting to be as extreme as possible for fundraising purposes. That we have to empower people to fight back. Now, Kevin, Sean, was the very first thing you guys did file a federal lawsuit in your cases?
No, not for me. I battled it out in state court for quite some time and was getting nowhere there. And one thing that my federal attorney, I have a really badass federal attorney. It's Phil Ellison at Outside Legal Counsel. The dude is just a rock star. He's very well known in the federal circuits, especially the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. He said, you got to take it out of their sandbox and put it into somebody else's sandbox. And so far it's paid off big time. I obviously won Lindke v. Freed. That case has now been remanded back to the trial court after they tried to block it at the appellate court on remand. We got to put back. I have another federal lawsuit against our county and our jail because they were denying good time for people serving contempt sentences, even though state law says everybody gets good time in county jail. Doesn't matter what your sentence is. So for 20 years, our jail has been denying good time. So they've been over detaining people. I filed a federal lawsuit, and we basically just prevailed on that one too. So I've had a lot of success in the federal court system.
I want to ask you about that real quick before we get to Sean. How did you have standing? Were you ever held in contempt, or were you?
I actually. So my custody judge, I did a straight year on contempt. It was 5 different charges of contempt. They should have ran concurrent. It should have been 1 93-day sentence. And instead what he did is he spaced them out and would give me 93 days on the one. And then 2 weeks before I was to complete my sentence, he would give me another 93 days. This went on for a year. I finally got it to the Court of Appeals. They immediately let me out of jail and overturned all his orders. Well, while I was incarcerated, I did a lot of studying on the law library. I came across the state statute that deals with good time. And I said, hey, there's a problem here. The jail, they went back and forth with me for about 3-4 months. They started changing the rules in the rule book to say that they don't have to give contempt. And I said, you're going to have to take that out. I still have the post on my Through My Eyes page. I said, you're going to have to pull this out. A month later, they had to go back and amend it and pull it out. And when I got out of jail, I talked to Phil. We filed our federal lawsuit, and we've been kicking their butt in that lawsuit.
Man, one of the biggest issues that I hear when I hear these grand court hearings and whatnot is the immense cost that must be involved in actually achieving this. Like, what's that arena look like for you?
As far as the financial costs, like legal fees?
Right.
So one thing I've been very fortunate, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in my custody case, and I have a team of 4 attorneys, 4 different firms that specialize in different areas of the law. But I've spent so much with them throughout my custody fights that a lot of the stuff now they do pro bono for me. And a lot of this federal stuff, because all the federal cases that I bring involve, they're all 1983 actions. Mm-hmm. And due process violations, attorney fees are a part of that. It's not like it's just a lawsuit and they take a contingency of a settlement. Attorney fees are actually written into, they can go after attorney's fees. So like I said, Phil loves going after bad government actors, and I've given him everything he needs to really take him to task. So he does a lot of my work pro bono these days.
I'm glad to hear you made it to that level where you can actually have that opportunity. That helps us little guys out quite a bit.
That's way better than get your 10th Subway sandwich free.
Right. Well, like I said, money is a big deterrent and a big obstacle to a lot of people that have solid claims and that would probably prevail. But you're talking tens of thousands of dollars, just to get started, and a lot of people don't have that. And I've just been very fortunate that I found a legal team that's willing to take this fight on for me without, emptying the bank account.
Yeah, weren't you
Mhm.
telling me last night, Chase? You've got like what 10 or 11 of them that are like ready locked and
22.
loaded? Oh,
22.
22.
I have stopped commenting on people I wasn't already commenting on until I find someone to take all the cases. I mean, all the way up to the CDC. Now, Sean, I didn't mean
Yes.
to cut you off on that bit of it, but what about you? Did you just come into town? And I mean, I shouldn't imagine the very first thing you did was move in, put your dishes away, and then put some yard art outside.
No, yeah, I actually made a deal with my HOA president. I told him about my past. My favorite one was the one in Connecticut where I drew up the local version of mayor as Joseph Stalin on an 8-foot tall banner, and it says, "You will speak when I say so." Got it. And I hung that one. I got 2 TV stations, and the video's still there.
But
That was
what I mean is, did you come to town and pick a fight?
no, no.
Okay.
They picked the fight with me. I just got a flyer in the mail saying they're going to build 1,000 apartments down the street. I said, "You can't do that. This is inappropriate for the area," because I used to be on zoning. And I show up to a rally. I start asking questions. The mayor, and I had spoken to the mayor previously, the guy with the handcuff bow tie and the
Mhm.
prison jumpsuit. I spoke to him when I moved here, and they did a deep dive on me and started releasing all the stuff I did in Connecticut, well, all the bad stuff they could find on me in Connecticut, before to discredit me. But I was just asking questions. And what ended up happening is I wrote a letter. It was March 24th, 2022, that was published in the local paper. And in that, I basically outed their entire building fraud here. Wasn't aware of it. I just knew the right questions to ask because I'd been on zoning. And they doxing me and keep spreading around an article about my false arrest, never telling anybody that the whole thing was bogus. And so I got fed up with it after a while. And then I put up, this was April of last year, I put the original yard art up. They sued me and they took me to court and said I didn't violate the ordinance that they accused me of, which is abuse of process. Fined me $1,800, even though you're only allowed to fine $50, period, by the Tennessee
State
Constitution.
Constitution.
And then it just went from there. Then we ended up with a 1983 claim and got that crooked federal judge, Travis McDonough, out of Chattanooga. And McDonough takes over cases that people. So Farragut's part of an insurance pool with Chattanooga, Knoxville, and some other places. And anytime anyone in that pool gets sued, McDonough takes the case over and kills it. So he actually procedurally killed my case. I'm paying for this out of my pocket, and it's hurting. I mean, it's a lot of money. They're not going to bleed me out. They're trying. They've altered court documents on the appeal to make it look like they're doing something they're not. It's crazy, man.
You filed a motion to correct the record, so this isn't like an accusation that you're not willing to make.
Not only that, we have a writ of mandamus in the Sixth Circuit to try to get this judge kicked off, because to put it simply, you have this insurance pool. The judge used to work for the city mayor of Chattanooga, who is involved in this. That mayor, Andy Burke, Berke, is at the USDA giving out money for subsidized housing. So this judge has a bias for subsidized housing. In his previous law practice, he used to get money for these people. There's a problem, number one, because my case is about subsidized housing. Then we get into the insurance pool thing where he's improperly using his position to kill cases. Mine, I believe, we know of at least 12, and I think the total number is 17. So the judge killed my case without even he didn't finish all the issues. We caught the town of Farragut altering documents. They forged the 21-22 annual report and actually changed it. They altered it. We put a spoliation of evidence motion in, and the judge just shut the case down without even resolving it. And I mean, I think I sent you the writ of mandamus. It's like 200 pages of all these things this judge has done.
Mm-hmm.
And the court's had it for about 6-7 weeks.
So the point that I'm wanted to get to, and I'm actually going to highlight Moms for Liberty Knoxville here, comments. Most conservatives are not far right. They are everyday normal people who are just trying to work and raise their families. And that is my experience here. I don't know how it is in Michigan, but most Democrats would probably also be normal, everyday people who are just trying to work and raise their families. Would anybody here consider yourselves anything but normal prior to things escalating with the government?
No.
No, you guys were all pretty normal before all that happened.
I wouldn't say that about me, because I've been doing this a while, and I moved down here. I didn't want to get involved in this. They've dragged my HOA into it. I've had death threats. I mean, all of this stuff. I've never seen it this bad. I've fought some big battles in Connecticut, and they're violent. No one does anything here. The sheriff's office, DA, none of them will do it. The comptroller knows about this, won't do anything. They all cover for each other because they're $100
So
multi-billion dollar scam is at play.
you would have considered yourself more of a political activist before all this happened?
I've been an activist since 2007.
Okay.
I've been an
Okay.
elected. Yeah, I would say I would not. If you talk to me personally, I just want to do my own thing and be left alone.
What about you, Kevin?
I would say that I was just blissfully ignorant, like most folks are. But until you get bit, once you get bit, it changes everything, and like Sean said, he didn't pick a fight. The fight picked him. And it was the same thing with me, something that, it was a custody case. It was something that should have been pretty cut and dry. And it wasn't. And like I said, the more I started looking, I started just the first thing I did is I Googled my judge's name and my ex's attorney's name. And I found out that they're co-defendants in a 1983 action, and her attorney's firm is representing the judge in that lawsuit that they're co-defendants on. And so I'm like, okay, there's a problem here. Well, then Google became my best friend, and I would just start Googling names together. And it's amazing the trove of information you can find online.
I've heard that issue with a lot of people, that they're blissfully ignorant about the system until they're in the middle of it, and by then it's already too late, and they're already maybe too broke or in too much trouble, and like to try to fight it and get people that don't have any idea what's going on is such a big, massive amount of effort. It's like, I don't know what you do in that situation, because the incentive structure, the way it's set up, is so overbalanced toward the establishment versus the individual. And I don't know what you do about that, but it's totally not fair. And it ends up giving guys like us these stories we're telling, and people going, wow. But then that's about the extent of it. It's about all the farther they get into helping us,
Well, it's like Sean said, they all collude together. It's a whole cabal. It's listening to him talk. I'm like, this is so parallel to everything that I have going on. And it's the same type of positions and same people that we're talking about, the judges, the DA, the mayors, the head of the county commission. This seems to be happening in a lot of places, especially these smaller communities. They're a little more insulated and can get away with more stuff because it's easier to control the arena when you only have one group vying for power. A lot of counties, you'll have 2-3 groups vying for power. So they keep each other kind of, in checks and balances. Where if you only have one group that's in power, they're very hard to go up against because they control everything.
So in Tennessee, they used to be ran by like the Dixie Mafia, some people would call it, a bunch of Dixiecrats. You still have the Good Old Boy Network, but even in the Good Old Boy Network in a town like Murfreesboro that's growing, you're just now getting to the part where you've only got 2, maybe 3 warring factions, as you put it. And all of them are what I call chosen sperm. They are the almighty His Majesties. That's his pronouns, by the way.
That's from a kid from Michigan, University of Michigan. It wasn't my creation, so he used that when they started this a long time ago. You can look it up. It's a great story.
Well, so the reason that I wanted to bring y'all on is because what I've seen a lot of people do is they think that the system is going to save them. They think that the system is inherently good and things will work out in the end. They trust. They hire an attorney in a custody case thinking that they're going to get the best representation that attorney can provide them. And if you do, you're lucky. Most of the time you get somebody that wants to collect the check, file as few things as possible, and shake hands with the other attorney in the back room. And what I want to highlight, though I was fired, though I have been told not to poke bears or my loved ones could get bit, though I have had my own fair share of things, what got me started in this was not being the victim necessarily. It was seeing that after I was a victim, that there was no one there to stand up. Like the radio station tried to help me set up that protest, the one that Phil Valentine was on. And then when I got fired at that protest, they didn't talk about anything. Like they didn't want to have anything to do with it. They didn't want to call out the employer or they just wanted to, well, sucks to be you, I guess. And I just think that wasn't right. So I tried to be the person that I saw missing in some of the other instances. And the one thing that I have seen a lot of people are not very good at is actually calling these people out to their face, and taking it all the way, because the system is going to leave you high and dry in most cases. So the one thing that 3 of the 4 of us on this call right now have in common is that we have been involved in federal litigation against the government. And so Daniel, you're the one that's missing out on that. But
hey, look, to be fair, Mike Gronkowski did discover that I made a typo on my LinkedIn page. So he does got that one on me.
well, so I really want to try to communicate to the people that are watching what they need to do. Now, I'm not saying that they have to be able to find a law firm and file a whole bunch of federal lawsuits and go to the Supreme Court like Kevin. They don't have to even put yard art in their yard. But I'd like to get y'all's insight on what does the average person do? They realize something's wrong. They see that, you've got overly religious, corrupt big business on the right. And then you've got overly non-religious, corrupt big business on the left. And they're like, I just want my gay friends to be able to protect their marijuana plants with guns.
Right.
How does that person, A, keep from being a victim of the state? Or if they find themselves a victim, what do they do?
I'd like to answer that.
Please.
The first part of this we have to understand, being in Tennessee. So I grew up, Connecticut has a lot of wealth, a lot of old wealth. The wealth is very concentrated in Tennessee, unlike my former state. And that's the first problem, is that they in essence, I believe that the oligarchs in Tennessee treat us like slaves. And they will take your job, they will punish your kids at school. And all the people that are loyal to the system get jobs. So the conservatives and our group of people, Americans First, MAGA, Leave Me Alone, libertarians, all of that, we have an income problem, and we have to address that first. These guys can't cancel me. They can't harm my family. They can't harm any of that, and it bothers them. They can't put gloves on me. And for people who know Knox County, Farragut's the bastard stepchild. And in 2 election cycles, our team ended the tyranny when we were told it was impossible, and I was crazy even doing it. And it was a group of us that did it. I am a cog in the machine. You have to be willing to learn how to beat them at their process. Coming from my world, growing up outside New York City, we handle things differently than they do in the South. We don't pull punches. We don't take crap. The more when they find me that $1,800, you know what I did? I put another piece of yard art up, turning the Tennessee flag and replacing the stars with hammers and sickles, calling Farragut the Democratic People's Republic of Farragutstan. I tripled the damage. And now we're up to 4 of them. So the first thing you do is go watch The Sopranos, start to finish. Do not eat at Olive Garden because that's not real food. Go eat some real stuff. And you have to understand, they stab one of yours, you shoot 10 of theirs. Now, people watching at home, it's a metaphor.
With paintballs.
It's a metaphor. What you do is, if they do something dirty to you, you hit them 10 times harder than they hit you. And you go after them. See, the thing is, we never had to play dirty here. We put pressure on them. I set up a Substack page, and the whole entire 2022 election, the bad guys responded to everything I did and reacted to it. And I never released how many people actually read it. I controlled the whole entire election cycle because these guys don't know how to fight. They don't know how to do anything. And you put pressure on them and you do it the right way. And had they not cheated, we would have won this mayorship. The whole thing would have been over. And they retaliate and they will go after they made up a story that I committed a felony. And we pulled the video from the town and the whole thing's a lie. And that's where the 1983 started.
So
But
let me, I want to interject just really fast so that people can kind of understand. You fought back and you're still standing, right?
I have not buckled at all.
So and you've been loud about it and very public. At any point in time, have you tried to say, no, I can't really talk about that? No. And like tried to keep it quiet?
The problem that these idiots have out here is they don't understand how I operate. I'm snooping around everywhere. They don't know what I'm doing, but I'm right in front of them.
But what I mean is when you found something, you were loud about it. You wanted to make sure that everyone saw what was going on.
Oh yes.
So
I mean, I live on a corner of two cul-de-sacs. My house, if I put one of those, counters out of how many cars have driven by, yeah, it'd probably be thousands because people will drive by my house to read this. All the UPS guys give me high fives. It's hilarious. I'll go see one of the UPS guys in a store, and they're like, "Oh, you got to go see this guy's house." We named it the Center for Yard Art and Civil Disobedience. Made a Facebook fan page. If you're willing to be that in your face, I understand Donald Trump because I grew up admiring the man doing what he got done there. You've got to be willing to hit these hayseeds out where I live. Now, the worst part of it is most of these clowns in Farragut are from other states. They're liberals who brought their stinking liberal politics to Tennessee. It's not locals. The locals hate these guys, but the locals here won't throw a punch, and it's because they just don't. Well, it's not. Yeah, what do I care? I don't care. If
but that's why the locals won't do it. Is it's not polite. The South is very bless your heart.
Here's the thing, man. If someone's coming at you with a knife, you can't apologize that you use lethal force to defend yourself. And I know a lot of good people here, and I've literally started a snowball effect because there's been some other things that have gone on, and there's a lot of people with money who hate this town. Again, we took control of the town. We turned our third person. It's a 5-member board. We have 2 rock solid leaders. We have a third guy we've turned. We have a fourth guy who's been there, who's a good guy, goes to church, all that. And he's actually dealing with these issues. So the mayor went from a 4-1 majority 2 months ago to a 4-1 minority. And there's tactics and all that stuff, which is I'll go as far as you want me into it, but you have to be willing to be effective and to be persistent. We have a huge break in all this federal case, which I cannot share. They finally stepped in it, and we've got them in a trap that I think is actually going to spring. But you have to be willing to learn the process. I encourage anybody who hates the system, join the Republican Party, find good Republicans in Republican districts. We won our county commission race in a 5-way race with 47%. For a woman who is voting against all the overbuilding, which is our issue here. We took 2 other seats in the county that I wasn't involved in it, but people I work with are. So in one election cycle, we took 3 county commission seats, and we had at least 2, probably 3 solid people to begin with. That's a majority.
So I get that. The reason I'm trying to have both of y'all on those because we need to tell people how to have these tactics. That's and I don't want to I don't want it to be like a lecture, but when you see something that happens, like Kevin, I've been following some of the stuff you post on that Through My Eyes. What are some of the?
You mind if I interject before you move on there?
Yeah.
So if anybody would like to take His Majesty Sean Murphy's Civil Disobedience Training Program, you can currently find The Sopranos on Max, Hulu, and Apple TV. You make it.
Yeah, they're a little soft for me. I use some pretty brutal tactics, a lot of butt hurt and hurt feelings. The Mad Queen of Hearts is still mad about that meme on her. She wanted to be a county commissioner, and she was done after that. It's amazing. That cost me like $20.
Yeah. Well, so Kevin, what are some of the things that you've highlighted that matter in in Michigan? Because it's obviously a different clientele, different area. I don't know if they're overbuilding there per se, but I've noticed that you've kind of done a lot of the same stuff that I have here and that Sean's done. Is you put out some stuff that the local politicians don't like.
Yeah, so one thing that I found, and I think everybody would agree on this, is information and knowledge is power. The more you know about these people, the more you know about the issues that are arising, the better you can attack them. And one thing I've been really good about is I've built this whole network. First, I was just the crazy, unhinged, you know, dissatisfied dad who didn't get enough time with his kid, and people kind of try to write me off, and they're like, look at his criminal record, and I have a laughable criminal record as far as criminal records go. Like, all the actual criminals I spend time with, they tease me because my stuff's so lame. But I was able to overcome that by just putting everything out there in real time. I mean, people have watched my fight now. I've been on social media with this fight for almost 6 years now. And, everything plays out in real time. And, when they lock me up, I'm able to stay in contact with them. I have ways to get, posts out still. I get information. And the one thing I've been really good at is I have a lot of people in the county attorney's office and in the prosecutor's office and in the county building and the different city governments. There's a lot of dissatisfied people that trust me to feed me the information that I need to go out and make life hell for these bad apples. And I hit them on some very personal stuff. I'm not like, they voted this way on this. I'm like, hey, remember that affair you had back when you were the head prosecutor and you were sleeping with the head of the DTF? Let's talk about that kind of stuff. And I'm like, here's the T-shirt you left at his house, and here's what the panties look like you left there. And
hey, those are mine. Those are mine.
Directly involved. And so I hit them very personally, but it's not like Jerry Springer type stuff. It's relevant stuff. When the head of the county, when the DTF prosecutor or the prosecutor assigned to the DTF is sleeping with the head of the DTF, and then they're testifying and having cases, now, that's an issue.
I have to get your opinion. Okay. What if a sheriff came into office, and when he came into office, he was married, and this woman soon thereafter became the head of HR, and she was married. And then within a couple of years, they were both divorced. And then a Christmas sweater picture that says the Ferris family Christmas, and they're both wearing it.
This is all hypothetical, of course.
Yeah, all hypothetical here. And there's only an ordinance about, you can't sleep with staff, but it doesn't apply to the sheriff, apparently. Those are the kind of things, that they are relevant because they show that they'll bend the rules, that they'll break the rules.
It's the whole rules for thee, but not for me. We see it all the time. And we have that issue here. Like our previous sheriff had to retire or resign because he was engaging in a bunch of extramarital affairs. One of his mistresses actually sent me the love letters he was writing her on the official sheriff's letterhead. So I posted them. I actually have a website, a news website called bluewatercurrent.com. You can go read some of these articles on there. Our chief judge, his best friend and the guy who ran his campaign, was convicted of drugging 6 teenagers and violently sexually abusing them on camera. He's now doing 20 years in prison, but he was our chief judge's campaign manager and best friend. The chief judge's name is in the police report twice as having these 13-year-olds out on his boat with this man, yet he's still our chief judge.
That's another
I can tell you all kinds of stories about our local community.
This is another tick in the box for incompetence versus malice. So, yeah.
Real quick, there's a question here from OC Overwatch, which is Overton County. How did you go public if the papers and the radio stations are in the pockets of the politicians? And I think go ahead.
So that's one thing is I try to get the media involved, from the very beginning. And they were very gun shy about getting involved in custody cases and stuff like that. So what I did is I just became the media. I created my social media pages. I then went out and created bluewatercurrent.com. I'm getting ready to launch another podcast. I mean, if the media won't help you, it's like you guys, you guys all started your own stuff. You become the media. And as long as you really put the time in and stay committed to it and engaged in it, you can start to change the narrative.
I agree on that. You have to, I had a different situation here. It's just typical of, your personality reflects you. And a year after moving here, the number 2 radio station's station manager approached me about doing a live show. He ended up getting killed by COVID protocols. Him and his wife did. But we were going to start a brand new show. Now, I'd never been in radio before. I'd lived here a year when we put the deal together, and we were going to start it January 22. That ended up where my podcast was ended up hosted on their station. I decided to part ways. We were going to do a live show, but it wasn't working out, and I left on good terms. And then people just followed my show. But when we were on the radio, I could use the radio station free of charge as an exchange for giving them exclusive interviews. So I would bring in. I had 3 county commissioners in the studio out of our 11. They all came in and interviewed. Sometimes you get outside the box where the number 2 guy wants to be the number 1 guy. You make a deal where you barter. Then we continued our podcast. My co-host has started Moms for Liberty here, has wrecked these guys beautifully. Sherry deserves a lot of credit. And so she and I have kind of parted ways. We're going to reboot my show very soon by the end of the month. I have a new person helping me and all this stuff. Kevin's right. You got to make your own. We used to do flyer drops. You can put things. My favorite thing to do is take the community bulletin board in your town or municipality and put your stuff on it, take photos, and then, of course, when they take it down, you sue them for 14th and First Amendment violations because they're taking your stuff down on a community bulletin board. If they can post their propaganda, you put yours up.
That is the secret. Before I ever heard of the Lindke Freed decision or any of that, I knew from the Donald Trump v. Knights of Columbus Free Speech Institute that you can't do that. And in Tennessee, at first, they tried saying that it's not subject to open records request, the deleted comments and stuff. And I was just a naive, didn't know what I was doing. And I allowed those municipalities to feed me that line of bullshit. And then I learned, wait a minute. No, I actually went to the source, the comptroller, the Open Records Council at the comptroller's office, and found out, no, there's an attorney general's opinion that says they do have to keep it. So one of the things that I did, like in the Eddie Ferris lawsuit, the comment which he deleted literally said, please stop deleting comments. It's a violation of the First Amendment, and you can be held liable under Section 1983 of Title 42. And he deleted that comment. Now, he also deleted a comment about a ban list. They actually had a physical ban list banning people from the sheriff's office. And one of the people is not even a real person. It is an online alias. So you 100% are going after them for things that they said on the internet. But in another case, because in a 1983 case, there's also something, and I don't have the exact statute handy, but I will post it in the comments after this, punitive damages. If you can find that they did it basically intentionally or with complete disregard, well, when you tell them don't delete this or don't block me, it's a violation of my constitutional right, and then they go through and do it anyway, that is about as open and shut as you can get. So there is money for attorneys here, and punitive damages, attorneys' fees. You're probably not going to get a massive check because you were blocked on the internet. You're probably not going to get $1 million because you were blocked on Facebook, but your attorney will get paid. They will unblock you. And if they block you again, you're going to get a steak dinner out of it, at least.
Oh, they're going to, in Lindke v. Freed, like I said, we were able to get the appellate court decision overturned. It got remanded back to the Sixth Circuit again. We've been successful in getting it remanded back to the trial court now. And Mr. Freed in the city of Port Huron, if I prevail on this case, which I'm most likely going to, I mean, they may owe, $1 to $2 million in attorney's fees. I had Arnold and Porter out of Washington, D.C. They're one of the biggest law firms in the world. That's who we went with to file the petition for cert with the Supreme Court. You're talking 12 attorneys, 7 paralegals, and a bunch of other support staff billing from $2,000 to $4,000 an hour for those attorneys. It's going to be very substantial. Freed already had to pay $10,000 just for the publishing stuff that we had to do, the printing stuff just for our Supreme Court case. That was $10,000 or $11,000 in printing fees he's responsible for because I prevailed. And if we hit him on these on these attorney fees for the case in whole, it's going to be $1 to $2 million, and the city's not indemnified for that. They're not. Their insurance carrier is not covering it, so we may bankrupt them.
You should have what you got to do is get a bunch of buildings named after you and your favorite people. You're welcome to reach out to me. I have so many free ideas. I will burn through. Chase knows. Yeah, listen, man. I do it for free.
I can just picture that Mr. Freed's office is now in the Kevin Lindke building.
Oh yeah, they I tried to run for mayor a couple years ago. They challenged me on that. I was going to rerun this year, but I got too much other stuff going on. But yeah, with me, I'm relentless. This is you follow a lot of my stuff and see what I do. This is every day I'm doing stuff. This is basically my job. I do this all day, every day. And, they have people assigned to just watching my stuff. The sheriff's department has a deputy that watches all my stuff. The prosecutor's office has one of their associate or assistant prosecutors who watches everything that I post. I make a post and things, I can make things happen like that. If something's not supposed to be happening, I make a post about it. Next thing you know, an hour later, they're like, yeah, they stopped doing what they were doing because they're just, they are absolutely clued in on everything that I say.
So we've got a fan club. I tend to go find the biggest, baddest bully in the yard and then cyberbully him or pull his pants down.
My sign is I bully the bullies. I love it.
Yeah, well, and it's because those are the people that have actually created fear in other people. And if you can stand up to a bully and say, I'm not afraid of you, then it shakes them at their core because they get off on that power. They get off on being able to flex that muscle. That's why Eric Holder's bodyguard hates me so much. But it's I think it's really important that people understand, like you said, the rule of 10. That is actually, I was talking to my other friend about that, and that is his exact rule. If you hit me, I'm hitting you 10 times harder. And it's don't let yourself become an easy victim. But at the same time, people have to understand that the government under no situation is there to help you, especially if they initiate the contact. Okay. If you go into the clerk's office and need help filing paperwork, they're probably there to help you. But if someone approaches you, if you're going to knock on the door, there's generally nothing good that can come from that. And so often I see people like, they just want to vote harder. Well, I'm just going to pick, well, it's going to be one of those two people. So I'll just pick the one I like and I'll do it real good this time. And,
press that pen to paper a little harder this time.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Use a few more mean adjectives in that sternly worded
letter. Turn the check mark into a bubble letter.
You know what it is, Chase?
What?
It's put aside all the wild stuff that I love joking about the wild stuff. I'll be serious for a minute. All you have to do is learn how to communicate, how to be effective. People think being on social media is effective. Effective, you're either changing policy or electing people. And that's where I focus on. I shred people out of the movement who are whiners and not doers. This is a merit-based system. How are you gonna create and win? And put a plan together. This is like special ops in the military. Define your target, pick your target, and accomplish this. And I think so many people are afraid because they've never done this before. I've been an entrepreneur, been in my own business for almost 25 years. And if you learn the techniques, and I've been and Chase, I've helped around the state. I was involved in 2 other parts of Tennessee, big victories. And I would do more if people were smart enough to just listen. But, for those people who want to make a difference, if I know you're the real deal, you'll get my time. I've never charged. I don't charge. I believe in giving back. I've adopted Southern Baptist Christianity, and that's what I believe in. I don't care what other people believe. That's their business. But we can do this if you just learn. And the thing is, it doesn't take much. In some of these more populated areas, I do want to give a good shout out to Greg Homan, who's the 4th conservative vote out of 7 on the Wilson County School Board. And he put out the mailer of all mailers, showing his opponent as a Biden-Harris lover with her face diaper and all of that, and made her own it, and clipped and beat an incumbent by 10 points. A guy from California. I spent a little time just helping him, kind of focusing him. Did
But
a
he
great
was
job.
so just to keep things concise, though, he was willing to do what it took. You know, it's
Yes.
an area that
Which-
went 70+% Trump. Most of them didn't like masks. So he sends out a picture of her in a mask. He knows that
Yes.
it's going to get under her skin.
Yes.
And that it's the action reaction that is so important. When you know, Kevin, you were talking about being able to put a post on the internet and it create a stir. That is we have to start doing that. People don't like it when this information comes out, when their secrets get put out. They don't like it.
They hate
And that's why we need to make it front. We need to put billboards up. A friend of mine once, and I'm probably going to incorrectly tell the story, but the gist of it is the local mayor or the judge had a second floor office. So he worked with the window washing crew to hang a mayor's office for sale sign. But it said backbone and integrity not included. I sold those a long time ago, and hung it outside the window in downtown somewhere in like South Carolina. But everyone saw it. I took a sign out and reminded everyone about a local independent who voted for Biden. That's all it said. I wasn't even saying that was a bad thing. Maybe I was helping her. Probably not in a 78% Trump city, but you know, that's why it's important that everyone knows, because these people are not honest. Democrats, Republican, if they are an establishment politician, the H in politician stands for honesty. I'll let y'all figure that one out.
I just make funny videos, man.
What?
I said I just make funny videos.
Well, so now that we've got a little bit of a baseline, kind of feeling where everyone kind of came from, the attitudes we all take, there are a couple of news stories and things that are happening. Obviously, the world has gone to complete shit. Okay. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, we are going to go ahead and drop you guys now so that we can get a